She didn't mean to get lost. Really, she didn't. And in fact, she wasn't. She knew precisely where she was, and it was exactly where she was supposed to be, on the bus with a group of tourists exploring Iceland's southern volcanic region of Elkjö. She'd been hiking all day. She was feeling tired and dusty, so it was only natural that when her bus stopped at that rest area, she took advantage of the opportunity to step into the bathroom, freshen up, and change her clothes. When she got back on the bus, she felt like a different woman. She also looked like a different woman. In fact, she looked so unlike the person who had stepped off that bus that some of the other passengers started to worry. What had happened to the grimy woman in the old t-shirt? They looked up and down and didn't see her, so they told the bus driver he had to go back. Somebody was missing. He put on the brakes, waited a good hour, but nobody else turned up. So they called the police in Kvalsjöldlish, who radioed the search and rescue team. Concerned passengers described an Asian woman between 20 and 30 wearing dark clothing, and it must have been a pretty poor description. Officials had stopped to consider their next step, fearing the worst. They took stock from the beginning, trying to recreate exactly what had happened, and this was the moment that they realized the person they had been searching for had been searching with them all along. The resulting headline, "Woman Accidentally Joins Search Party Looking for Herself," made world news, and I thought, there's got to be a sermon in that one. People are always working on finding themselves. Best-selling memoirs and self-help books get written on the topic. Oprah talks about it all the time. It's a multi-million-dollar industry. But I think about the woman in responsible search for truth and meaning. But when we talk about that, we tend to focus on the world outside of us. We gather wisdom from the world's religions, seek to experience the wonders of the universe, both widely and deeply. We reach out to others, sharing with them the wisdom and insights we found and learning from them the wisdom and insights that they carry. But a search for truth and meaning cannot be completely fulfilled or fulfilling if we neglect the search inside ourselves. It isn't enough to ask, do I agree with thus and such a theological position? Nor is it enough to say, I feel comfortable as a Christian or a humanist or a pagan or a Buddhist. The truths we find externally mean nothing unless they connect with something deeply held and honored internally. And I mean something as soon as we touch anything with any of our senses, we take it into ourselves and we shape it in our own way. No two people experience reality alike. How we understand the world has as much to do with the people we are as it does with the reality outside us. And that means that if we want to find truth, we need to search not only the words and practices. Very easy to talk about finding yourself. I once read a fantasy novel in which a character becomes trapped between two mirrors, images of herself extending infinitely into the beyond. And in the novel, the only way she can escape is to say which one is the real her. She shrugs, says, "This one," and walks away. What would you say if a stranger were to ask, "Who are you?" Would you tell them your name? Would you describe what you do for a living or what you used to do? Would you talk about your personal background? Would you describe yourself physically? Would you talk about how other people see you? Would you come up with a series of labels? What would you say? There are so many ways we might answer the question. I could describe myself as a minister, a folk singer, a father and husband, the child of my parents, the grandchild and great-grandchild of my ancestors. I could describe myself as a white man raised in a certain culture, the product of a suburban liberal upbringing in the Washington, D.C. area in the 1970s and 80s. I could talk about the things I think I'm good at, or the things I think I'm not. I could tell someone I'm an ENFP, but they still wouldn't know me. I don't know that any amount of data could honestly answer the question, who am I? We all tell stories about ourselves to ourselves, and sometimes to other people. And sometimes those stories reflect the person we are, but sometimes they reflect the person others have told us they think we are. If we're told often enough we're a certain way, or a certain kind of person, or that we're not good at something, sooner or later we're likely to believe it, whether it's true or not. Unpacking all of that can sometimes mean going into some rough territory. The poet Diego Valeri once said that if you're going to go into the depths of the self, prepare to go armed to the teeth. There are layers within us, experiences we've had, our joys, our pain, our vulnerability, all jumbled together. Sometimes it's too much. It becomes overwhelming. Parts of ourselves that we kept safely hidden away begin to emerge, and we may not know how to deal with them. The playwright-born Paulette Williams understood the spiral of pain that comes from a sense of self damaged by constant messages of inadequacy. As a black woman growing up in the 1950s, she became bitter. And by the time she was 20, she had tried to end her life multiple times and in multiple ways. But somehow, at some point, something shifted within her, a sense of defiance, perhaps, a spiritual awakening of herself to herself. She took the Xhosa name Ntozake, meaning she who comes with her own things, and the Zulu Shange, meaning she who walks like a lion. For too long, Ntozake Shange had looked to other people for her sense of worth. Society, her parents, lovers. I was missing something, she wrote in her masterpiece play for colored girls who have considered suicide when the rainbow is enough. Something promised. Something free. A laying on of hands. She found something even deeper. It wasn't courage exactly, or some definite answer to every question. Instead, she talked of the tree outside her window in that squalid boarding house, of allowing it to take her and hold her in the breeze. She talked of the sun emergent and of tears which turned to healing. I found God in myself, and I loved her. I loved her fiercely. And the cast of the play repeats, I found God in myself, and I loved her. I found God in myself, and I loved her. It becomes a dance. This is the journey within, the search for self. When we open ourselves to that search, whether it is easy for us or hard, we open ourselves to the divinity within. We open ourselves to the realization that just as this living universe is sacred, so too are we. All of those labels we take on, all of the roles we adopt are merely dim reflections of the sacred truth inside us. They're mirrors of a sort, portraying us merely in two dimensions. None reflects the truth and complexity of the human soul. For that, we need to look within. Find the holiness inside ourselves, lift our heads and say, this one, this is me. Other. Your path has known love and hardship and joy and redemption. Your path has known loss and giving and untold turns, choices, and revelations. Search inside yourself and uncover the divinity within. And when you've done that, when you've been through that kind of experience, whether for you it happened all at once or in many small awakenings, or again, sacred questions. Who am I called to be? How do I feel I should live? How will I treat other people? How will I treat myself? What gifts do I bring to this life? What gifts have I discovered? The search for self never ends. Instead, it becomes the foundation of all our seeking and all our living. It shapes the spiritual paths we embrace, the love we are able to give, and the meaning we find in this wonderful and infinite universe. The light we find within, and the light we find within the nurturing dark within us becomes the light we bring to others, and in its holiness, the world becomes more bright.